about the health and medicinal benefit. Welcome to tonight's show of Marijuana, Compassion, and Common Sense, the show that tells you the truth about marijuana, gives you the facts about medical marijuana, and tries to explain the absurd labyrinth of laws that try to make it difficult, if not impossible, for you to obtain this healthful and medically benefit plant that's been used by humanity for thousands of years. My name is Lanny Swerdlow. I'm the director of the Marijuana Anti-prohibition Project, an organization based in the Inland Empire, and we invite you to come to our monthly meetings. We have 2 meetings every month. We have a meeting on the first Sunday of every month at 3 p.m. at the Cathedral City Public Library, and that's located at 33520 Date Palm Drive. And then we have our second meeting on the second Wednesday of every month at 7:30 p.m. at the Joshua Tree Community Center in Joshua Tree at 6171 Sunburst Street. And notice where we're meeting. We're meeting at a library and we're meeting at a community center. I mean, how much more mainstream can you get than to meet at libraries and community centers? So come on down to one of our meetings and kind of learn firsthand about what you're going to hear about on tonight's program. Well, I kind of talked about how you have this political and legal labyrinth that you have to go through. Well, this next story is kind of about that. It happened here recently, right here in the Coachella Valley, with the Can It Help medical marijuana dispensary. It seems like the authorities just never tire of doing one thing here and then one thing there, just kind of popping up wherever they can to cause you problems. Can It Help is a prime example of what they like to do. Here we go with their story about Can It Help. The most incredible things happen when people talk about medical marijuana dispensaries, and they kind of produce this kind of aurora, and depending on which side of the fence, I guess you sit, or whatever, makes your interpretations get colored. And so when you read something in the news and you connect the dots, is a medical marijuana dispensary a problem, or is a medical marijuana dispensary a benefit to the community? And here's an interesting thing that happened with Can It Help. And with me is Alan Layton, the patient advocate from Can It Help. And we're going to talk about a recent little brouhaha that happened up there. It had to do with some jewelry stores in the neighborhood on El Paseo where Can It Help is located. Alan, you want to tell us about it?
Well, there was a recent rash of robberies on El Paseo. A large, substantial amount of jewelry was stolen, and during the theft and the subsequent investigation and recovery, there was one little comment that was made as to whether or not possibly it might be the element that the patients that Can It Help brought to the El Paseo district.
Essentially, what it was, Channel 2 News did a story on the jewelry things there, and then interviewed several merchants who said, well, the problem is happening because of the dispensary in the neighborhood. It's bringing in the wrong element or something or other like that, right?
Correct.
Yeah. So then Stacy was called up on the radio talk shows and all this kind of stuff, and there were some newspaper articles about it. And what was the scuttle? What were you hearing from the people who were coming to the clinic?
We understand that the relationship between medicinal marijuana use and criminality goes back a long way, and we're constantly fighting in terms of imaging and stereotyping of the fact that people that use medical cannabis are not criminals and don't feel like criminals and aren't involved in criminal activity.
Well, I had a friend that told me that he only smoked marijuana once in his entire life, and after he smoked it, he did want to rape and murder, but he had no desire to rob a jewelry store. There's a problem, and so they immediately blame it on the dispensary. And because that's the most convenient thing to blame it on. We got a problem here. Let's blame this problem on the dispensary. The dispensary, of course, as it turns out, absolutely nothing to do with it.
I think what it speaks to are generally people's misperceptions on what a medical marijuana patient is,
yeah,
or who they are.
Well, it's just the word marijuana just sends up all kinds of red flags.
That's very true.
So what was it? What did happen? Well, the stolen jewels were recovered from the for the stores. And what's interesting is that it says that more than $4 million in jewels and $100,000 in cash was on its way back to El Paseo, thanks to Riverside County Sheriff's Department. Riverside County investigators served 9 search warrants. Now, here we go. Served 9 search warrants in the Los Angeles County area and recovered some of the money at each location. So what we had here was a gang of jewelry thieves out of Los Angeles who, targeted El Paseo. Not because there's a new element in there. It's the jewelry stores on the streets in El Paseo that are responsible for the criminality that is happening in El Paseo. If there wasn't jewelry stores on El Paseo, then you wouldn't have had these jewelry stores robbed, would you?
I never thought about it that way.
That's right. And I think that what we should be doing in front of the, go before the Palm Desert City Council and say, look, this robbery was committed because these stores here. Now imagine if the medical marijuana dispensary had been robbed. If you guys had been robbed, they would have been up in arms that, look, we've got this store, it's bringing in a criminal element, they're being robbed because of what they're selling. Well, here we have the same thing. We have, because they're selling jewelry, they're going to be bringing these dangers upon the El Paseo business community, and I would think the El Paseo business community would not want jewelry stores.
It is interesting that being a merchant on El Paseo for 10 years myself, I saw 3 banks robbed, one right across the street from me. There were jewelry store robberies where the owner was shooting out towards the street his gun and actually shot hit one of the robbers. And most of this history never went reported on El Paseo, and it was kind of kept quiet in terms of the activity. But when a jewelry store is robbed and having nothing to do with medical marijuana somehow gets caught up into the fray and gets associated with criminality and criminal activity.
To this date, have any of the people who appeared on television and trying to link the robberies to the medicinal marijuana dispensary, have they apologized or anything for this statement?
Well, no, I think in all fairness, they didn't try to link Canna Help. I think that they were expressing more opinion than anything else. But no, there hasn't been any offer to us in terms of, hey, what a crazy thought process I had, and you guys are really okay. I will say this also, is that most people on El Paseo don't have any idea that we're there. Right. And the people that are around us tell us what great neighbors we are.
Mm-hmm. Well, anyway, this is an interesting story here, and kind of illuminates, this didn't illuminate about marijuana, this story illuminated about human nature. I told you that the labyrinth that you have to go through, the political maze, the legal maze, this is just an example of the absurdities that come out of your rightful reason to be able to possess and utilize this very important medicine. This is the absurdities. Anyway, but speaking about the absurdities, now we go from the absurd, to the sublime. We're going to go back to our continuing coverage of the 4th Annual Cannabis Therapeutics Conference that was held in Santa Barbara in April this year. And I want to just bring you a quick little interview with one of the attendees at the conference. It was Dr. Robert Sterner, who has come to our meetings many times. But here's what Dr. Sterner thought about the conference. Here attending the conference is Dr. Robert Sterner and Cicely. And they, how do you like the conference?
Very, very high quality research being presented today. I'm impressed. And the lay population is following right along, having no problem understanding that.
Isn't it nice to come to the conference where it's all about health and medicine and not about laws and legal stuff?
Yes, and especially I think Montel pushed that point.
You bet he did.
He really
you bet he did.
We're all in a position where we have to speak out, and we realize that there are a lot of eyes upon us, but we have to do what's right.
There's about a half dozen of us here at this conference, and Dr. Sterner and Cicely are one of them. Maybe we'll have a chance to talk with some of the other people as we mingle around. Thanks for coming, and I'm sure you'll get a lot more.
Our pleasure. We'll be back.
As you can see, Dr. Sterner was having a great time at the conference. He was learning a lot and meeting a lot of new people. And that's one of the reasons you go to conferences, to meet people and to hear speakers. And one of the speakers that Dr. Sterner heard, and we're going to bring you now, was Arnold Hasekamp. He is from the Netherlands. He is a kind of into pharmacy there. And you know, when you think of the Netherlands, you always think about, you know, if you're thinking about marijuana, you're thinking about the marijuana coffee houses. But you know, there's a lot more going on in the Netherlands than just marijuana coffee houses. And Arnold's going to tell you all about it. To show you that this conference is not just the 4th national conference, this is an international conference. And with me to prove just how international it is Arnold Hasekamp from the Netherlands and Leiden University. What's your association with Leiden University?
I'm doing my PhD there. I'm almost finished, and I hope to find another position that makes me continue the work I'm doing now on medicinal cannabis. Is your PhD on medicinal cannabis? Yeah. What I'm trying to find out is what makes medicinal cannabis. So what I'm trying to do actually is to find out what defines cannabis. What are the chemicals that are present inside? How can you use them? How can you get them out? Is there differences in different way of using, smoking, vaporizing, making tea? Because it seems that many people are trying to use it, to try it out on people, but many people don't seem to realize that it's a very complex collection of chemicals that are there.
It's enormously complex. What's your field?
My field is actually something that's called pharmacognosy. It's a very difficult word, but it's nothing more than pharmacy based on plants. So we are researching medicinal plants.
Wow, and of course, cannabis is one of the most ancient of medicinal plants. You know, when we think of the Netherlands, of course, you know, we think of a very progressive, liberal, tolerant society, and of course, we always think of the cannabis cafes there. Coffee shops, right? The cannabis coffee shops. How does that make your research easier? Because there's like a more open attitude towards cannabis?
It doesn't only make it easier; it makes it possible. Because no country in the world is allowed to do cannabis research if they have not provided for a national office to take care of these things. And there's only 3 countries in the world that have such an office. That's the United States, Canada, and the Netherlands. But 4 years ago, our Minister of Health, she decided that there was enough reason to take medicinal cannabis use for serious. These coffee shops were around, so people were going there anyway because they had a free choice to pick up cannabis there and to try it for anything they liked. And she said, you know, isn't it strange that we're providing people with the opportunity to use medicinal cannabis, but we don't know anything about the safety of the product? You know, you just go out there, it might be polluted with heavy metals, pesticides, microbes, so why not set up a program that can provide them with safe medicinal cannabis? So that's why she started this whole program that ended up in the foundation of the Bureau for Medicinal Cannabis.
So the Netherlands is going to be providing medicinal marijuana to patients in the Netherlands?
They are already doing that.
Really?
Since 2.5 to 3 years now. There's a state grower. There used to be 2, but now it's only 1. And they are providing cannabis to pharmacies. Patients with certain conditions, they can go to their general practitioner, and if they get a prescription, they can go to any pharmacy in the Netherlands and pick up their little plastic canister with 5 grams of state-grown cannabis.
Now, since the Netherlands has universal health care, does that mean the government provides them their medicinal marijuana as like a regular medicine?
Well, it's still the law of economics that govern everything. So when it was introduced, it was hoped that it would be reimbursed by health insurances, but it's not something that the state can force. So there was an open discussion about that, and in the end, the health insurances, they decided it was not the right time yet to decide that this was a real medicine. It's still under investigation, and it is a kind of a rough time in the Netherlands because the costs of healthcare are rising a lot, and our healthcare system has changed a lot, also the insurances. So this is not the right time.
I don't know, it seems like it might be the right time because, you know, a lot of these studies you've seen here, people who use cannabis use far fewer of the other medicines, which cost way more than it would cost for the government to produce cannabis. So actually, if they would allow people to use cannabis, it would cut the cost down.
That's true. It's true, and we have a little bit of a problem in the Netherlands now because the price in the coffee shop is actually lower than in the pharmacy for an obvious reason. If you don't pay for your electricity and you don't pay tax, then of course you can make a cheaper product. But for Dutch people, it's, the coffee shop have been around for so long that they kind of trust enough the quality that's present in the coffee shop. So, and it's hard to compete with that. So we're now finding ways by improving our product, making new forms of the product, like making a prepared form of cannabis that is very suitable for making tea, for example, and still negotiating with authorities for maybe sponsoring the program, but it's kind of difficult. Finally, you just always end up with discussing with some influential people at high levels, and it's all about opinions. So it's a continuous discussion.
It shows that even in a rational, sensible country like the Netherlands, this issue gets so wrapped up in so many emotional things that people just don't seem to be able to deal with it on a rational basis.
That's true, but on the other hand, you should also see what has been done so far, and we're the only country now providing state-grown cannabis of a very high quality that's been already stable in its composition, and it's the same strength now for almost 3 years. So it's a great product. I'm convinced it's the best cannabis you can find in the whole world.
Could be, and the Netherlands is kind of like Mecca for a lot of marijuana people, so I certainly want to go there sometime. Tell me, you've come here, you come to this conference halfway across the world. What's your take on the conference?
I love it here.
Arnold, thank you very much for joining us here on Marijuana, Compassion, and Common Sense. Medical marijuana is really seriously taken in the Netherlands. And what really gets to me is that the government actually grows the marijuana to provide to medical marijuana patients in the Netherlands. That's an enlightened attitude. We have a lot to learn from that. But, of course, the medical marijuana is used for patients for various things. And now we want to bring you one of the patients in one of my favorite parts of the show, Patient's Corner, and their use of medicinal marijuana. On almost every show, we try to bring you Patient's Corner, which is an interview with the patient, because, that's a lot of what the show is all about. It's about the health and medicinal benefits of marijuana and how better to find out about these benefits than by actually talking with people who have experienced the benefits. And in these little Patient Corner, we brought you people with chronic pain, and people with glaucoma, and people with arthritis, and people with depression. And today we're bringing you another person who had was using marijuana for treating a different ailment. And this is what's so amazing about marijuana is it can be used for so many different things. So for tonight's Patient's Corner, and you learn some more about what marijuana can do for you, I want you to introduce Doug Lamphere. Some of you may have remembered Doug from previous shows. He is the gentleman that we all owe a tremendous debt of gratitude to for contacting the Los Angeles Airport Security Police and getting them to write a written policy that medical marijuana patients are allowed to have marijuana on them and board their plane without being arrested or having their marijuana confiscated or anything, but recognized as legally mine. So thank you very much for doing that, Doug, and thank you for joining us tonight on Patient's Corner, because Doug is also a patient. And but in this particular case, it wasn't for why you normally use marijuana. What was it that you found marijuana to be of benefit to you?
Well, 4 weeks ago I had a hernia surgery, so I had to undergo general anesthesia and a 3-inch incision to repair a hernia. And in that process, you could imagine there's a lot of pain involved.
You bet.
Well, they prescribe opiates for that pain management. Well, 48 hours after my surgery, I was no longer taking the prescribed pain management or pain medication that they gave me.
It was like what, Vicodin or something?
It was actually
Percocet?
No, Percocets. Yes.
Yeah, Percocet. Okay.
Yeah. So it was
strong stuff.
It was
very
very
disorienting.
very powerful.
Yeah.
So as a result, I didn't want that to be affecting my digestive tract and my intestines, because as a result of surgery, they give you intravenous antibiotics. That has an effect on your digestion as it is. So I wanted to be able to keep a constant nutrition and a constant diet in order to both heal and to keep my digestive tract going. And both the opiates slow down your digestive tract as well as have other effects with regard to your intestines and digestion. So by being off of them, I was able to keep a good diet, be able to eat regularly. I didn't feel nauseated from taking an opiate-type medicine, so I could keep a good diet going through me, and I was able to regain my nutrition rather quickly after the surgery and didn't have to only be on liquids.
So that, of course, helps you heal quicker.
Oh, absolutely.
By staying on good nutrition. And, that's one of the things that, I'm a nursing student. One of the things you're taught when you're working in the hospital is people have got to eat properly or they're not going to recover as quickly. So as nurses, we encourage people to eat their meals.
Correct. That's what my thought was.
So marijuana could make a nurse's job that much easier, couldn't it?
Well, it sure makes you want to eat that much more often. You're not inhibited on when you want and how much you want to eat. So.
Right. But now it also was effective with pain relief as well.
Oh, absolutely. It was tremendously helpful with the pain management, and I found it was good for the anxiety before the surgery.
Before the surgery, you used some marijuana as well as before too.
Absolutely.
Made you calm.
Right, because this was my first surgery. Never had surgery before.
First surgery.
Right. So as a result, it was a complete unknown realm for me to go into. But it was nice to be able to medicate before the procedure, and that took a lot of the edge off.
Well, even if you're going into surgery after you've been in surgery many, many times, each time it's a little disconcerting. And so marijuana could certainly be a benefit of relaxing you, so you're not so tense and nervous. And if you're not tense and nervous, the surgeon, the doctor's going to have less trouble.
That's what I thought.
So,
It seemed to help.
So anyway, what would you say your pain level was before you would use marijuana after your surgery, and then what would marijuana take it down to, with 0 being no pain and 10 being excruciating, banging your head against the wall pain?
It was a pretty severe pain. I mean, I had a 3-inch incision in my lower abdomen, so that by every muscle that you move involves your abdomen in one way or another. So it was pretty. I'd say a 9. And I was
way up there.
It was way up there, but with having the cannabis and being able to constantly have a regular medication regimen, I was able to keep the pain at bay all day long. The only time I did use the pain meds was for about 2 nights after that for sleeping. And that was it.
So you didn't use the Percocet at all, even immediately after the operation? Just
for 48 hours after.
You did.
Yes. Yes.
So, and because marijuana is really some kind of power. It's really good, strong medicine. It's good for pain relief. But there's certain high chronic levels of pain. You're just going to need some of these other pain relievers.
Oh, I took it, but I woke up the second day after surgery and found that by medicating right away, I alleviated the pain that I woke up with. So I just didn't need to take any after my night's sleep the second night.
Yeah, and these drugs like Percocet, I mean, they do a fairly good job of cutting the pain, but they also just kind of make you very uncomfortable and disoriented. And marijuana can kind of help take the bad edges off of these very powerful pain medications and make them more effective.
I found that, yes. When I did need to take it in the evenings, when I was about ready to go to sleep, I would find that it would have a quicker onset because I did have my digestive tract working. It was constantly digesting food, so to assimilate a medication was very simple for it.
Right. And this is what's so great about marijuana is that it has synergistic effects with so many other medications, and it has very good synergistic effects with pain medications. You don't need as much of the pain medication, and it makes it more effective. So
it worked for me.
Worked for you. Doug, I'd like to thank you for sharing these experiences with our viewers. If you ever make it to our meetings, quite often, especially the Cathedral City meeting, Doug is quite often at those meetings, so you can actually talk with him in person. You having access to medicinal marijuana is what this show is all about and what our organizations are all about. People like Doug Lamphere should have the right to use this medication for recovering from surgery. You should have the right to use this medication for recovering from surgery too, and the other multiple uses that marijuana has both for your health and for medicinal purposes. And one of the things we have to do to achieve that goal is to educate our elected leaders, because they're the ones that pass the laws that affect our ability on how we can obtain this medicine. And I want to give you an interesting example of what just happened recently. Steve Wesley, who is a candidate for the Democratic nomination of governor, came to the Coachella Valley. And I learned about it, and I went to the meeting, and I was able to actually ask him a question. And the question was about the medical marijuana ID card. I pointed out that under the law, you have to have the ID card in order to be protected from arrest. If you don't have the ID card, police can still arrest you. And I said Riverside County was the first county in Southern California to issue this card. So Riverside County residents are protected. But most of the other counties throughout Southern California don't issue the card. Neighboring San Bernardino County is an example of that. You cannot get a card in San Bernardino. So if I, as a patient in Riverside County, go up to San Bernardino County and I have some marijuana on me and I get stopped by the police, I show them my ID card and they let me go. But if a police officer stops a San Bernardino County resident who doesn't have an ID card, that same San Bernardino County police officer who let me go is going to be able to arrest the San Bernardino County resident because they can't get. And I said, this is absurd. I asked him, what would you do as governor if you to see to it that the counties implemented the state-mandated ID requirements? Well, his answer was, that's a tough question. I have no idea how to answer the question. He said he was in favor of medical marijuana. He did say that he believes the state should be supreme over the federal government, but he would get back to me on the question and told his aide to contact me. Well, as of the filming of this show, the aide has never contacted me about this. But I figured I'm not going to push it right there in the midst of last week or so of the campaign, and they had more important things to worry about than medical marijuana ID cards. But if Steve Wesley wins the Democratic nomination, I'm going to go back to him and I'm going to ask him, all right, you couldn't give me an answer then, you said you'd give it to me later, what's your answer now? And I'll report it on this show. Who knows? Maybe he'll even consent to be interviewed on our show. But I'm not holding my breath on that one. But this is the kind of interesting stuff you learn by coming to our meetings, and I really want to encourage you to come to one of our meetings. We have 2 meetings every month in the Empire. On the first Sunday of every month at 3 p.m., we meet at the Cathedral City Public Library at the corner of Dade Palm and Dave Kelly. That's 33520 Dade Palm. We meet in the community room. And on the second Wednesday of every month at 7:30 p.m., we're up in the high desert at Joshua Tree, where we meet at the Joshua Tree Community Center at 6171 Sunburst Street. And you notice we meet at very respectable places, libraries and community centers, so you have no reason not to come on down and join us. We have speakers, you'll meet medical marijuana patients, you'll learn more about this than you learn about what you really want to learn. You actually talk to people. It's great to watch the show, but if you really want to learn about medicinal marijuana, come to one of our meetings. You can learn about the health, about the medical uses, how to, where it's available for patients, how you have to become, how you need to become a patient, and you'll actually be able to talk with other patients about medicinal marijuana. So, I thank you very much for joining us on tonight's show. Next show, why don't you invite a friend to watch it with you? And until then, this is Lonnie Swerdlow saying thank you very much and good night. You won't want to miss our next show when we bring you an interview with Sandy Burbank from Mama.
There's a place in the field where nothing grows but weeds. Sometimes she goes there, she lays down and she breathes. There's a person in every crowd, a group, the soil was weak. 'Cause where the rose won't grow, that's where you find the weed. That's where you find the weed. He was a busker on the street.
Al asked me to introduce Dr. Abrams.
To show the power of my belief in herbs, and now smudge this conference officially open.
Out of the other corner, stopping to limits and not. There's a place in the field where nothing grows but weeds.
I concluded that marijuana is a necessary nutrient.
And I think that it's very important that patients understand, exactly what the federal government is doing, and not to mention the fact that it's very important that the message get across to the American people that this is a safe and effective medicine.
Well, at a time when people were dying all around me, we were doing anything we could to try and save people's lives.
They should reclassify the drug, take it out of Schedule 1, and put it into a schedule that can be monitored and dispensed.
That's where you find